Raywat Deonandan, who is an epidemiologist and associate professor in the Faculty of Health Sciences at the University of Ottawa, and Dr. Alon Vaisman, epidemiologist and infectious disease specialist at the University Health Network. Hello, doctors. How are you?
Hello. Good, thank you.
Okay, let us start with Dr. Deonandan. First, a reaction to the new information on the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Oh, this was a long time coming. I mean, the real-life data has been pointing to high effectiveness amongst the elderly for some time. I'm a little shocked that NACI had that first recommendation to not use it amongst the elderly. The data had been there for a while. It looks like they were slow to read it. So I'm happy that they've expanded the age groups for it.
Okay, yes. I mean, it was surprising in the first go-around that they restricted it while other countries were opening it up to older age groups. And now they are releasing it for people over 65 as other countries are pausing it. Dr. Vaisman, do you have an opinion on that? My only question is, I'm not sure the body concerns itself with communication.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's two separate issues that have kind of overlapped and led to this issue with AstraZeneca. The first, as was mentioned, was the age issue, which many countries initially reversed. And the second now is this thrombosis question. So what was observed in Europe was that there's a handful of people who developed clots after receiving the vaccine. However, at this point, the data does not suggest that this is actually a causal link, that the vaccine caused people to have the clots. So it's still approved and recommended for elderly people to receive in Canada, and hence the recommendation.
Okay, just a small point for both of you. People who are 65 might object to being called elderly.
Sorry, apologies.
Okay, I'm going to take a question from Daryl in Toronto. You have a question about the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Yes, you're saying that the blood clotting issue is just coincidental to it. So it just causes me to wonder, if that's the case, why did we not hear about, let's say, the blood clotting issue with the Moderna or the Pfizer when it came out? And is there any data to go back and look at to see?
Who wants to take that?
I mean, this is Dr. Deonandan, I'll take a shot at it. Different countries have different reporting procedures and standards. It's just that a signal came out of some hospitals where 30 people reported having blood clots. We have to remember that these vaccines are being rolled out in a largely older population and, to some extent, an immunocompromised or fragile population. A number of medically adverse things are going to happen to that population anyway. It's just that now we're looking at them more closely because they're getting a vaccine. So that's why the coincidences will occur. The trick that we have to do here is look at the rate of occurrence of these things in everybody else and compare them. So blood clots apparently occur about 0.02%, 0.07% of the population, typically, and in this vaccination group, it's 0.0006%. That's why we're pretty confident that's probably not a causal relationship. But to answer your question directly, like I said, different countries have different monitoring procedures and standards, and these things will occur.
Okay, Daryl, thanks for your call. And one thing I wanted to bring up is that I was reading about an increase in blood clots before the AstraZeneca was even being distributed. And I saw studies on an increase because of COVID in people who had to be hospitalized with COVID, but also I read one article about an increase in blood clots because people are a lot more sedentary now. Dr. Vaisman, have you seen anything like that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So specifically with COVID, absolutely, your risk of getting a clot as a result of having COVID is more than 300 times higher than the baseline risk, or in other words, the risk associated with getting a vaccine. So obviously, if you get COVID, it's much more worse from the clotting perspective. As for the general trend before COVID about whether clotting was increased, there may be a variety of explanations. Sedentary behavior may be one of them, but there's a variety of other comorbidities that are now more common among the population. And as the population ages, those kinds of complications become more likely. Plus, there's certain medications that may also predispose people to having other issues which lead to clotting. That may have been an observation even before the pandemic.
Okay, yeah, I bet in the pandemic, people are staying at home, probably exercising less, sitting more, all of that. Dr. Deonandan?
Yeah, definitely. This past year is going to create a number of chronic disease issues that we're going to be detecting for the next few months. Who knows what people have been doing? We've been overeating, watching too much TV, not getting into appropriate relationships or getting into inappropriate relationships. Who knows what the toll has been on our mental health and our physical health. But yes, the sedentary lifestyle is not a good thing. Remember, other things that cause blood clots are flying, right? So those who have multiple and lengthy airplane trips tend to have a higher incidence of deep vein thrombosis. That's not a disincentive for many people to take flights. So neither should this be a disincentive to take this vaccine. The risk is very, very low.
Okay, I'm going to take a call from Gail in Richmond Hill. Hello, Gail.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. My question is a little more general. My husband and I are both over 65. He's 73, I'm 67. We both have diabetes, and I have ARVC, which I'm sure the doctors know what that means. I'm confused as to when and how long I have to wait before I'm included in the vaccine phases.
Okay, I'm going to try to answer that before we throw it to the doctors. So I think you would both be, the way things stand now, in phase 2. The province is still trying to get to people who are over 80, and it would go by age and I think some other conditions, but judging by your ages, your husband would go first and you would go next. And there's now another option if you can get the AstraZeneca, so maybe you'd go a little faster. But you're in phase 2, which supposedly starts in April, and until I see it starting, it hasn't started. Do either of the doctors want to add to that?
I'll take a shot at it first. I think you are correct. And the ARVC, I don't think, puts you in a higher risk category, depending upon medication that you're under. So you're not particularly immunocompromised. So, yeah, I think Libby is correct on that.
Okay, Gail, thanks for that.
Thank you very much. I enjoy your show.
Thank you very much. So we have a few minutes left. Now, we just heard from the Science Advisory Table, and they say, yes, we are in a third wave. What does that mean? Because restrictions have been lifted and, it's sort of getting spring-like, and we have a couple of big holidays coming up where I know people were hoping to see their families. Dr. Vaisman.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that we are seeing a rise of cases, and it's going to coincide with these holidays. I think the important message for the public is that we're not quite out of this yet. It's going to take a little while longer for the case counts to come down. We don't know where this will peak yet, but as vaccinations rise, then we hope that we won't see the same level. And the other important thing for people to recognize is that the number of deaths we're going to see associated with this rise won't be the same as we had seen in the past. We hope, at least, primarily because of vaccination. So at least this time, we hope that even if there are a rise in cases, there won't be the same concordant rise in deaths with vaccination being so common now.
Well, so common. I mean, first of all, it's 2 weeks before the vaccination kicks in. I mean, Dr. Deonandan, do you agree that we're in a third wave? And do you think it will be, in fact, less virulent than the first two?
I think we're absolutely in a third wave for a number of reasons. The science table has said so, the data suggests it, and also we're trailing Europe. And Europe saw their third wave start a couple of weeks ago. And I do tend to agree that the death toll might not be as dire because those most likely to die are long-term care residents, the retirement home residents have been vaccinated. And now we're making great strides into vaccinating the community-dwelling elderly as well, but not as quickly as we should be. So some people will die, unfortunately. More challenging is the potential threat to our healthcare system. Our ICU capacity is dwindling. Our acute beds are being filled up very, very quickly. And it looks like the largest proportion of people that are being hospitalized are those aged 40 to 79. And that's going to continue to be the case. So, as noted, we don't know when this is going to peak. This is the final legs of this disease. And we have to get through this crisis until we start seeing some daylight.
I guess I'd like to end with a question that might be more political than medical. I mean, I'm not sure that, we have mayors and other officials, they're clamoring for restrictions to be eased. Is there a special danger if we do that? And do you think we should be actually even doing more than we are doing? We're here in Toronto, Dr. Vaisman, we're in a gray zone, but it's not the same as the lockdown last spring. I can tell you that.
That's right. Over time, people kind of don't adhere as much to the restrictions as they were, and the third wave will be even harder. I think the other key piece of information that we're finding out now is about the fact that the variants of concern, of course, are driving this wave, and we know now that there's a higher risk of death associated with the variants of concern. So we can't be easing off yet. We might need to go back to the same levels we were before. We hope that's not the case. The next 2 weeks or so are going to be very telling whether that's necessary. So even if case numbers don't quite go up as high, the fact that this variant is potentially more deadly will be an issue as a result of the hospitalizations. And so we might need to think very carefully whether we're going backwards, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Deonandan, what are you telling people, and what does it mean if the variant is not just more contagious but more deadly?
It's almost a whole new pandemic in some ways, and if we let this new variant, particularly B117, the UK variant, become dominant, then we're in a whole new crisis. Our mitigation tools, like the extent to which we're wearing masks and having limits on gatherings, might not be enough to contain it. Our only hope there is rapid vaccination. So as I like to phrase this and to contextualize it, we're in a society-level marshmallow test. Remember the marshmallow test from psych class? Give a kid a marshmallow and say, I'll give you 2 marshmallows if you can wait 30 minutes before eating this one. If we can wait a couple more months before eating our marshmallows, we get all the marshmallows. And all the marshmallows means an open society. So if we can restrain ourselves from socializing for 2-3 more months, let the vaccine do its job, and prevent the spread of the new variants, then we have a chance of getting normal much faster.
Okay, on that note, and anticipating no marshmallows for lunch, let's wrap things up. Thank you so much, Dr. Ray Deonandan and Dr. Alon Vaisman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that is all the time we have for today.
You're listening to an exclusive podcast of Fight Back on Zoomer Radio. Heard weekdays from noon to 1.